Our next guest believes that the real estate market in San Diego is not going to crash. Derrick, on the other hand, believes that it could. Please welcome agent for North Compass Realty, Nadia Colucci.
And she's back in the house. Nadia Colucci is here. What's up, Nadia?
Hi, sweetie. How are you?
Great to have you here. One of my favorite topics, the market in San Diego, the real estate market. I did a video a couple months ago saying that, hey, look out. Some of the warning signs are there that we could see an impending crash in the real estate market. You, however, say no crash for you.
Okay.
So I want to give you the first word. Tell me why.
Well, let's maybe come to an agreement that we agree that in the last peak, there were loans being given on a few conditions. One, you had to have a pulse. Two, the pulse had to be somewhat active. And maybe three, you had to sign a lot of paperwork that you didn't read or something like that, right? I mean, the loan industry was just a little crazy. It was, all you had to do was ask. People were getting 4 to 5 loans with 4 different homes and things like that. I think today we can probably both agree that the restrictions and criteria are much stronger and borrowers are being documented and vetted a little bit more thoroughly. Can we agree to that?
Sure.
Okay. So I think due to the affordability that we have here in San Diego in comparison to the rest of California, we're still the most affordable city. I think that construction has tempered. We used to, in the peak, we had about 155,000 permits issued for building in California. Today, or last year, we had about 44,000, so that's down. And I think that kind of helps keep a lid on the craziness. So there's not overbuilding. Affordability is still strong. I think we have low inventory.
We definitely
I think we have a high population, and by 2020, they anticipate another 300,000 people in San Diego County.
That's
I think
insane.
we have. I'm sorry.
That's insane.
I know. So where are we going to put them? So when you have a balance of those things, I think the rental turnover rate is also at a good, stable number, as well as unemployment rate. So all those factors together, I don't see some crazy crash. Is there room sometimes for adjustments? Sure.
Well, let's address those issues one at a time.
Okay, go.
So let's start with mortgage qualification.
Okay.
So I think we have to look at each individual potential bubble, if you will, because we don't want to call it, it's not a crash, it hasn't crashed yet, but let's call it a bubble. Each bubble is independent of the previous one. So if we go back to the last bubble, that had nothing to do with the Great Depression.
Right.
Like we can't say, oh, well, but in the Great Depression, things were so much worse than they are now, because you can still crash.
But wouldn't you say that the last peak is somewhat of an indication of how things may go again? I mean,
Not necessarily, because they're totally, completely different circumstances, right? So like back then, like you said, the loans were completely different. People were buying for different reasons. The rental market was totally different.
Sure.
The overall housing market was totally different. So I don't
Okay.
think that we can expect that they'll be the same. But I think that just because it's not as bad as it was then doesn't mean we're completely insulated.
I agree with you there.
So we saw a huge, I mean, that was a crash.
Yeah.
That was like 40%. I mean, it was dramatic. It was violent. It was, there was blood in the streets everywhere. I mean, it was just terrible, right?
Right. I'm with you.
A great time for real estate investors to come in and make a ton of money, which they have. But for the average homeowner, it was horrible.
Right.
And all I'm saying is that some of the warning signs are out there. For example, foreclosures would be the thing that would cause major problem, right? Like when people start having to sell desperately. In other words, they can't go through the normal process of calling Nadia, right? Listing their home, staging it, doing all these things, and getting top dollar. They're not in that position for whatever reason, and they foreclose.
Okay.
Or those are the things that could cause problems. We're still seeing some short sales, but not a whole lot.
Not a lot.
I think it seems to be pretty much okay. But as you continue to see, more and more of the mortgage market is now made up of government loans.
Okay.
So back in the crash, only 8% of the loans that were executed as VA or FHA. Now it's almost 60% of the loans
Okay.
in the country.
Right.
So not just in San Diego.
Right.
San Diego, we feel very insulated because if their foreclosures are going crazy in Detroit, we're like, yeah, it's because it's Detroit, it's not San Diego.
Right.
But that's what we said last time too. So
But we
saw.
can't go back to last time because it's separate, remember?
No, but correct.
Right.
Correct. But that's the same kind of mentality we had last time, is that we're immune to what's going on elsewhere. But those were the leading indicators. When those bad places started having problems, eventually it bled out into everywhere.
Sure.
So we should pay attention to that, especially only maybe 10 years out, difference here.
Right.
And we are seeing now foreclosures spiking a lot in some of those areas around the country, and specifically those foreclosures are happening on the government loans, which make up the majority of the loans that are being financed now. So I'm just saying that that's something we need to kind of go, obviously right now all the stats you gave, 100% true. The market is very strong right now. So all I was saying was, if you are going to sell in the next 2 to 3 years, I like right now, because I know right now is a good time.
Yeah.
Next year, I don't know.
Well, none of us do.
The year after that, I don't know.
And everyone speculates that we're going to still be strong for many years to come. If
I know.
You're out there reading.
I
So
know.
they kind of have to get this information from somewhere. Economists, I know that they're a heck of a lot smarter than I am, but I can tell you what I feel and what I see happening with clients today and everyone here in San Diego, what the common consensus is. I had a client tell me the other day that moved here from out of state, and they're like, wow, we're shopping in Carmel Valley, and it's shocking to me that a starter home is $900,000. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's not a starter home here in San Diego. You have a top community and a top city, top school districts. You got to pay top dollar, right? I mean, it's just how it is. Our starter homes tend to be a little bit further east, and then we work our way coastal. But I think, yeah, we're a little immune to that. And I think most people are like, if I'm going to move there, I want to be on the coastline, and I can't afford that. Well, a lot of us can't. So you start where you can and then grow. So we've talked about this before. I think there's room for a conservative approach in this kind of a market. So people are like, well, should I be buying right now? Maybe I shouldn't. If you're going to put a roof over your head, if you're going to be there for the rule of thumb, I always say, is about 7 to 10 years, and you're there, you're paying, you have the write-offs, you have to make that decision for your family at that time. What are you going to do, rent?
Well, let's address the second point you made, which is more of a macro point, is this is one of the cheapest coastal California cities out there,
right.
Price per square foot by a lot.
So San Francisco's their median
double.
is 1.1 right now.
Yeah, it's like
crazy.
double. It's double here.
Yeah.
This is so much better than San
Way
Francisco.
better.
It's so much
Hello,
better.
I freeze in San Francisco in the
The
summer.
weather is so much better.
Yeah.
Everything is so much better.
Yeah, sorry, SF.
Sorry, not sorry. So I agree. Macro-wise,
Yeah.
how long will that take to materialize? Hard to say. And I definitely believe that long-term prices in San Diego go much higher,
Right.
much, much higher. They might double.
Right.
They might triple. So in my lifetime, but what is going to happen in the next 5 years, 2, 3 years, that's hard to say.
Right.
And so I think when people get to a point, in San Diego, you have to look at your home as an investment. Even though a lot of times, we're told don't look at it as an investment. You get financial benefits, but look at it as, a place that you're going to live, and you don't want to pay someone else's mortgage. You want to put your money into equity that you can get back later. And I get that, and that makes sense. But the problem is that, if you don't look at it as an investment, you could really cost you a lot of money.
No, it's always an
It
investment.
could really hurt you.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you there.
if we're looking at it like that, and let's say we bought a house, 3, 4 years ago, and we're going, well, we know we're going to be leaving in a couple of years. When our last kid graduates, we're going to move back to Missouri to be with the family or whatever, take care of our parents or whatever it is. Then you may want to take a look at right now. I mean, you may look at it and go, well, gosh, we're up $175,000. We can just take, tax-free off the table.
Yeah.
And then we can just rent for a couple of years here, and maybe we're going to overpay for rent for a couple of years. Maybe we will.
Right, but the 175 will offset that, you're saying.
Yeah. You just lock in a 2-year lease. You get, try to find a decent deal, find a place we can stay here, and then, we take the money and run.
I still know more people that are trying to get into San Diego than I do people who want to leave San Diego.
There's no doubt about it.
So in that, I do find that there's a little bit more of a balance. I also still have a little bit of faith in our government that those loans are going to tighten up a bit. I mean, when we talk, so we're saying that FHA, government-funded loans, so FHA and VA have replaced the subprime market. That's
Correctly.
gone.
Big time.
So I've spoken with lenders, obviously, in this business, and about 50% of their business is conventional, under 20%, FHA and VA, so split. VA, you and I could not qualify. So there are specific criteria that you do have to match or meet to get those loans. So FHA might be the one, is that what you're saying?
It's mostly FHA.
It's mostly FHA. I mean, there's still mortgage insurance for a reason on FHA, so you have to be able to qualify for a payment that includes that.
Which sort of makes it less affordable. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
The mortgage insurance?
Yeah, because you have the upfront premium, and then you have the monthly, which doesn't go away anymore. And that's like that's a massive amount of unaffordability being sort of injected into the already lower income, lower credit score. It's subprime.
Right, but then you have that they can also borrow or have a non-occupant borrower on with them, so they're liable just as much, so they're vetted. So maybe if that one person could not afford it, their parents then are still on the hook for it as well, right? Because you have to qualify with both.
But does that throw the baby out with the bathwater, though? Like if someone does
the baby
tank,
crying now. I mean, maybe it's time for it to give it a bottle, all right?
if it drags down the borrower with a non-occupying co-borrower, this person can't pay, then the non-occupying co-borrower now gets saddled with that deficiency potentially. So that could have a ripple effect.
Why can't they pay? Did they lose a job? Because our unemployment rate is pretty stable. I mean, do we,
hard to say.
It would depend on that.
Yeah, a lot of different things. I mean, we don't know, what the cause is going to be. Like, no one saw 9/11 coming, right?
Sure, gosh, yeah.
And that crashed everything.
Right.
No one, saw a lot of different things coming that have caused big problems.
Right.
Some things we did see coming. Like, foreclosures were happening in 2007. They were spiking, and people were going, nah, it's not us. That has nothing to do with us. That's just those places.
Right.
And so all I'm saying was, like, we were seeing that happen again, and we should take a look around and go, all right, do I like my setup right now? Like, if I sold my house today, if I call Nadia and say, Nadia, how much is my house going to sell for? And you tell me, and I like that number, should I take that money off the table? Because one thing's for sure, and this is the one rule I know, and the smartest guys I know have told me this and taught me this since I was coming up. You can never sell too early, but you can sell too late.
Mm-hmm. Smart. It's very true.
And if you're a little early, which I was when I sold my house in 2006, I was a year early. I was an idiot for 10 months.
That's it.
And then a genius ever since.
Yeah.
So, it's like you can sell, if you sell a little early, you may go, we missed 20, 25 grand.
Right.
But if you waited and you sold that exact same amount of time late, maybe you lost 125. Right. And it's high stakes.
It's timing, always.
In San Diego real estate.
Right. I'm with you on that. I still don't see a crash, though. You have not convinced me. You have not.
I'm not saying it's coming. I'm just saying the signs are there.
Right.
I don't know when.
Conservative approach, I think, to buying and investing your money, right? Most of the time. I mean, you can, in the stock market, play around and maybe be aggressive with some and not with others. But when it comes to home buying, I say that conservative approach helps. Again, that 7 to 10 year plan to stay in a home. I think what happens is the greed and the demand is like, well, I want this, so I'm going to go max myself out to get that. Well, I don't know if maybe that makes that much sense. What's going on here? Like in a garden. I like it.
Good stuff.
So I think if that borrower remembers that and thinks about this and thinks about the past and takes all of that into consideration, they're making smarter decisions a little bit more. Just because we all love riding in a Ferrari doesn't mean we should drive one or could afford to have one, right? Even if we could, maybe it's just not the safest thing or smartest thing to do now. When we have a ton of disposable income, then it makes more sense. And so I think that is maybe what is missing when people are making these decisions, is not so much what I want now, how, when, how, and the house has to be perfect. No house is truly perfect, I don't think. I always hear complaints when sellers are selling. They're like, well, I wish this, or buyers are buying. There's always something, and that's okay. I mean, it's like it is with everything, right? I don't know.
Hey, it's San Diego, right? If you want to build your dream home somewhere affordably, there's lots of places in Arizona and farther east where you can go do that.
Yes,
Nadia,
thattle happen.
Thank you so much for coming
You're
in
welcome.
today. Really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Fantastic insight from you.
I'm
as
happy
always.
you agree with me that the market won't crash.
We do strive to make you smarter, so stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free.